The Clippers are officially fining James Harden for his training camp holdout, but the real story isn't the fine itself. It's the obscure CBA clause they're using that gives them absolute power in this stare-down. The common belief, shaped by a decade of player empowerment, is that superstars like Harden hold all the cards. We saw Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler, and even Harden himself force their way to preferred destinations. But that era is ending. The reality is that the NBA's 2023 collective bargaining agreement, the very document meant to create a fair system for players and owners, was quietly weaponized by owners to reclaim control. It contains language so punitive that it can completely strip a player of his leverage, his money, and even his contractual freedom. We've pulled the CBA, we've run the cap numbers, and we've mapped the timeline of this entire conflict. Today, we're going to answer 3 critical questions you need to understand this standoff. First, what specific, rarely used rule in the CBA are the Clippers activating to financially cripple Harden? Second, how much money is he actually losing for every single day he refuses to show up? And third, why do the Clippers have a nuclear option that could prevent Harden from becoming a free agent next summer, effectively trapping him? The answers are buried deep in the league's rulebook, and they reveal a power dynamic that is shifting the entire league right under our noses. So what is this secret weapon the Clippers have? It's not the standard $2,500 fine for missing a practice, or even the $100,000 penalty the league handed him for his public comments. This is a contractual kill shot. Buried in Article 6, Section 5 of the NBA CBA is the Withholding Services clause. I want to read you the key phrase directly. A team may suspend a player who fails or refuses without proper and reasonable cause or excuse to render the services required by a player contract. That phrase, without proper and reasonable cause, is critical. Harden's public trade demand and statements that he will never play for the organization again make it legally impossible for his camp to argue he has a reasonable cause. He has publicly declared his intent to breach his contract. Once the Clippers determined that, per ESPN's report on October 2nd, they triggered the suspension. This allows the team to begin docking his pay not as a punishment, but as a contractual remedy. A league fine is punitive. This is recuperative. The Clippers are not just disciplining him, they are clawing back every dollar for services not rendered. This is the team itself recouping millions directly from his contract, a strategic maneuver that turns this from a public relations battle into a cold, hard contractual dispute where the team holds the ultimate receipt, the CBA itself. But as damaging as losing millions of dollars in game checks is, it's not even the Clippers' biggest threat. What if this holdout costs James Harden more than just money? What if it costs him his freedom? The single most terrifying piece of leverage the Clippers have is buried in Article 10 of the CBA, a clause related to contract completion and free agency. The rule states that a player who withholds his services for more than 30 days after the start of the regular season has failed to render the playing services called for under his player contract. If this happens, the league can determine he has not completed his player contract. For a player like Harden on a 1-year deal, the consequences are catastrophic. The team would be under no obligation to renounce his rights, meaning he wouldn't become an unrestricted free agent the following summer. In other words, the Clippers could effectively force his contract to toll or roll over for another year under the exact same terms. He'd be right back where he started, only a year older with his market value damaged and still under the Clippers' control. His entire strategy, enduring the fines, taking the PR hits, is built on the promise of freedom in 2026. This CBA provision gives the Clippers the power to vaporize that future. It's the ultimate checkmate, a doomsday clock that starts ticking on opening night. Every day he sits out past that 30-day mark, he's not just losing money, he's gambling with his own career autonomy. It's a high-stakes game of chicken, and the Clippers are driving a tank. And while that long-term threat looms, the short-term financial damage is already starting to pile up at an alarming rate. So let's do the precise math. How much is this protest costing him down to the dollar? James Harden's salary for the 2025-26 season is $35,640,000. Under the CBA's formula for suspensions of less than 20 games, the penalty is 1/145th of his base salary for each preseason and regular season game missed. A quick calculation shows that comes out to $245,793 per game. Let's put that in perspective. The median household income in the United States is around $75,000. Harden is losing over 3 times that amount every single time the Clippers take the floor without him. And this loss is cumulative and relentless. Let's map it out. If he misses the 4 preseason games, that's $983,172 gone. If he sits out the first month of the season, say 12 games, that's another $2,949,516 forfeited. Combined, we're talking about nearly $4 million lost before Thanksgiving. By the All-Star break, he could be looking at a loss north of $15 million, almost half his entire salary. And because these fines are deducted from his pre-tax income, the net effect on his take-home pay is even more brutal. The financial bleed is immediate, severe, and designed to force a resolution. And given the harsh realities of the NBA's new salary cap, the Clippers have every reason to stand firm and let him pay. Why won't the Clippers just give in, trade him for a mediocre package, and wash their hands of the drama? Because under the new CBA, his $35.6 million contract is their single most valuable trade asset. The league's new second apron rules are incredibly punitive for high-spending teams like the Clippers. Once you cross that threshold, you lose access to critical team-building tools. You can't use a taxpayer mid-level exception, you can't take back more salary in a trade, you can't even trade your first-round picks 7 years out. For a team deep in the luxury tax with an aging core, a large expiring contract like Harden's is one of the only flexible tools they have left to acquire talent. It is their lifeline. If they simply release him or trade him for players who don't fit, they get nothing back and lose that salary slot forever. That $35.6 million cap figure is their only realistic path to acquiring another impact player to support Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Their refusal to accept a subpar trade isn't about pride or winning a power struggle. It's a non-negotiable part of their championship aspirations under these restrictive new rules. It's a cold, calculated business decision, and it's a playbook we've seen run to perfection before. If this entire situation feels eerily familiar, it's because it is. We are watching a direct sequel to the Ben Simmons saga in Philadelphia from 2021. After a contentious playoff exit, Simmons demanded a trade and refused to play for the 76ers. The front office's response was a masterclass in leveraging the CBA. They suspended Simmons, fined him for every single missed practice, media session, and game, and ultimately withheld over $19 million of his salary by placing it in an escrow account. The standoff dragged on for months, creating a clear blueprint for teams dealing with the holdout. Stand firm, use the CBA's financial penalties to inflict maximum pain, and wait for the player's resolute and bank account to crack. Simmons eventually filed a grievance to recoup that money after he was traded, but the result was a confidential settlement, meaning he likely got back only a fraction of what he lost. The precedent is set, and it heavily favors the team in any war of attrition. The Clippers front office saw exactly how that played out. They know that possession of the money is everything, and the CBA gives them the right to hold it. They're not inventing a new strategy. They're simply executing a proven on against a player who seems to have learned nothing from his predecessor's costly mistake. This brings us to the final battleground, the court of public opinion. While Harden has been very vocal, taking his case to the media and accusing team management of lying, the Clippers have remained strategically, almost deafeningly quiet. They haven't engaged in a messy war of words. Their only official actions have been calculated off-the-record leaks about their high trade demands and now the official sterile implementation of CBA-mandated fines. This is a brilliant public relations strategy. By refusing to get into a messy shouting match, they frame Harden as the emotional, irrational party, while they portray themselves as the side simply following the established legal process. Every fine, every docked paycheck is presented not as an emotional punishment, but as a simple, unavoidable consequence of Harden's breach of contract. They are letting the CBA do all of the talking for them. Meanwhile, where is the Players Association in all this? The NBPA is in a bind. They can't vociferously defend a player who is openly violating the very collective bargaining agreement they negotiated and signed. They have to uphold the contract, making them almost a neutral party in this fight. The Clippers are winning the PR war by positioning themselves as the upholders of the contract, and in doing so, they've isolated Harden completely. So the Clippers aren't just fining James Harden. They are systematically dismantling his leverage using the very rulebook designed to create labor harmony. They've activated the devastating Withholding Services clause from Article 6 of the CBA. They are docking his pay by a staggering $250,000 for every single game he misses, and they're holding the ultimate trump card from Article 10, the ability to block his 2026 free agency if this holdout drags on. This isn't just a dispute between a player and a team. It's a stark reminder that in the NBA, the collective bargaining agreement is the ultimate source of power. The era of unchecked player empowerment, where a trade demand was a guaranteed ticket out of town, is being brought to a decisive end by the fine print in the league's own contract. And James Harden is finding out, dollar by painful dollar, just how sharp those clauses can be. To truly understand the power dynamics that control everything in the NBA, from trades to contract negotiations, you have to know the league's secret rules. This battle over the CBA is